Man, did WWE make a lot of changes in the last couple days in the ramp up to King and Queen of the Ring. We're going to recap that right here on the Wrestling Goes Through podcast. It is King of Podcast here with you on location. I am en route. So I watched it while I was on Uber duty today. And listen, I'm just really was caught up in the fact that, all right, it was right before SmackDown on Friday. And they said that, and Triple H made the announcement saying, okay, that aside from the King and the Queen being crowned, they will get championship opportunities. And then out of nowhere, I hear Nia Jax saying, I'm going to get my championship opportunity at SummerSlam. Like, when did that change? And then Michael Cole makes a point of that. I don't know if, listen, regardless if it was maybe was mentioned on commentary a little bit subtly, it'll make a difference. That's a pretty big deal to go ahead and make it on that show. One of the biggest shows of the year. And you decide, okay, we can't let a good tournament go to waste. And that's exactly what the creative team, that's what the team there decided to do. Now, if you go back and look at who they decided to go and put in the brackets of this King and Queen of the Ring tournament, then you know what? That would be a much bigger story because of the fact that who you had in the quarterfinals that you might have thought had a smidgen of opportunity to get a championship title shot. You're telling me that we're going to go ahead and set that up on the last minute? Now, I'm fine with a title shot, but you're going to put it in SummerSlam just like that. That's the way you qualify to get the SummerSlam match. So yeah, we got 2 matches already set up. So we know that Gunther's going to go after the World Heavyweight Championship. We know that Nia Jax is going to go after the Women's World title, right? Or the Women's title. We've got all that right there. And I'm saying to myself, okay, I never thought we were going to get to a point where Nia Jax was going to go ahead and beat Lyra Valkyria because I figured that was the one of these up-and-coming stars that was going to probably get some kind of a rub out of all this. But again, it would also make sense as to why some of these stars that are the up-and-comers lost in the tournament. But you think they might want to be able to tell that beforehand, because I think even if you just mentioned that as well, maybe some people might have been a little more interested in the event and what was going on TV. You're telling me that we're setting up SummerSlam title contenders? Like, that's a pretty effing big deal to do that. But they didn't do that. So I want to figure out, what were they waiting for to tell us about that? Like, that's a pretty big significant change they decided to make. And I'm telling myself, okay, if I go back and look at who were the folks that were being brought in the process. Like, again, I have to go back to the tournament itself just to go back and look at what they did and who they chose to get put in there. Because Carmelo Hayes was considered, right? But he lost. You had Tama Tonga, who's been considered. But if that's a title shot, you're telling me Solo Sikoa isn't taking that spot instead? There's a lot of logic I don't get out of this. And that's what really boggled my mind throughout the night, was trying to figure that out. Because I didn't really see what the modus operandi was for doing the pay-per-view like it did. And my other thought is there something about the Saudi princes that said, no. You're going to have this tournament. We're not going to do just props with crowns. No. Yada, yada, MC. You need to have title opportunity at SummerSlam. Sim Salabim, of whatever you did, the Saudi princes said, no, we need our shows to be more significant. We're going to spend more money on you guys, so in good faith, you need to go ahead and set this up so that something happens at the show. It just can't be another random show where you have titles up on the line and nothing matters at the end of it. But we got 2 noteworthy storylines. Now, off the bat, Liv Morgan wins the Women's World title over Becky Lynch. So, my guess is Rhea Ripley's coming back. And with that means we're going to go ahead and have Liv and Rhea visit the organic storyline because of Liv Morgan, being a little bit reckless in injuring Rhea Ripley, which, she might have been a little bit fragile after the run before leading up to WrestleMania in the first place. So, again, like, how many stars do we have that are injured right now and hurt and on the shelf that haven't been able to come back? Oh, they just mentioned that Drew McIntyre's finally back, and now they announced the match with him and Damian Priest at Clash of the Castle next month. All right, so they got that. And I'm saying to myself, man, they're setting up matches or doing things, but I'm telling you, there's not much of a long-term plan. And when they have the idea of what they're going to do with storylines, I mean, listen, I mean, it's fine. You want to work off of this storyline? Because you know what? Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley fighting each other right now off of this is about as good as you're going to get in an intricate storyline of this company right now, aside from the bloodline. By the way, no bloodline of this show, except for on SmackDown. Wow. You don't do that. And then I'm saying to myself, all right, with Liv Morgan winning, they really never made any mention about Dominic. And the thing is, too, is that even in this storyline right now, it's so damn vague. So Becky's going to ask for a rematch on Raw. Okay. But we haven't gotten any real explanation, which, you know, does commentary want to say the subtle things we've been seeing backstage where Liv is being accompanied by Dominic several times or Finn Balor several times, right? I mean, we don't know what the whole story of that is there. Obviously, they're trying to make the point that, you know, they don't want to say that, oh, maybe Liv was being helped. Well, they tried to say that Dom was trying to help Liv or take the belt off of Becky Lynch, I guess. That was the story they were trying to say. But it didn't make much difference to me. I'm like, we need something more out of this. It's just bad altogether. Now, listen, we can go ahead and keep talking about the fact that, you know, the matches were all fine tonight. No problem here. I know Gunther did have a little bit of a botch when he had to go up to the top rope to splash Randy Orton and had to go back up again so that Randy Orton can do the RKO out of nowhere. And then with Nia Jax and Lyra Valkyria, you know, they played the power game. And again, it's one of the first times that Triple H has one of his stars that he's built a lot of, you know, capital behind from NXT. And the whole build-up of that and explaining it to her, explaining to the audience, you know, the importance of her before she's really accomplished anything on the main roster as of yet. But Nia Jax, overpowered, and interesting that they decided to go ahead and put her here in that space to have a championship shot. And they, you know, didn't want to make the point about the kind of issues that Nia Jax went through leading up to coming back to the company and how Triple H is, you know, more in her favor of being here. That's fine. Listen, Nia Jax is an important veteran here to go and use on that main roster so she can be used with somebody else. Say that with Becky Lynch. You know, they're obviously looking at stars like Nia Jax and Becky Lynch as stars you look at right now that they are important. They can still be towards the top of the card, but they want to use them and they want to have them enhance the younger talent. The problem is it going to be believable with some of the stars they have that they're going to be believed to be at that certain level? Are people going to believe in that or not? Because I can't tell you if they're going to or not. This is not going to be easy for them. But this is your choice. Hey, what am I going to do here, right? Now, other than that, Sami Zayn, Chad Gable, Bronson Reed taking the pinfall, and the Sami Zayn, Chad Gable storyline continues. With Otis, I would have preferred that they finally give us a payoff in the pay-per-view. Like, why are we stretching this out for? It's already been proven that, you know, Gable's already a set with his Alpha Academy because they're not following the rules. They're not going along with it. So Otis is obviously the one right now, and everybody else is not going to go ahead and fall in line and break away from Chad until Otis does. But Otis has taken a lot so far. He's taken a lot of punishment. At this point, I mean, how weak do we want to make him look? Because, you know, you're not helping out matters by having him just look like, okay, he's just following along, he's a stooge, and he hasn't done anything yet. Like, it's time to go ahead and just let him become independent. Look, I think of the Maria Kanellis Allie storyline from TNA. It's the exact same thing. And, of course, this type of storylines happened before. And with Allie, there was one point where it's like, okay, at, like, you know, so many weeks of this where she was an assistant, Allie was, and then the whole thing about her wrestling. Like, going into that part, you know, it's done. I mean, how much farther do you want to go with Otis before you say, okay, it's done. It's all, we're going to get out of this. Like, there's one thing for timing when it came to Sami Zayn getting pushed around by the bloodline, and then the right time to go ahead and do it. But you're not going to do that with an Otis and a Chad Gable. I don't believe this is the same kind of thing. It's not the same effect. Interesting that Sami Zayn's part of this storyline, but like I said, I don't feel like you're going to make people care more once Otis decides to finally break away and finally refuse Chad Gable and breaks away. Finally rebels and says, okay, enough is enough. We need to have the enough is enough moment, but it's not happening yet. He doesn't want to do it. So this continues on, and I'm like, what more are you going to do with the storyline? Because again, Gable had a chance in this match. They're going to say, well, it's the thing that Otis didn't do what he was supposed to do. And how are you going to make it where Gable's going to get another title shot? Or find another way to get into the match with Sami Zayn? Because that's the part I don't get. Now, what they could do, I guess, if they're going to go this route, Otis could have a title shot against Sami Zayn. And then, Otis would have to give the belt over, a la Kill Switch to Christian Cage, has to give the belt to Chad Gable. They made the point that Sami Zayn was going to be looked like as a weaker opponent. They said, well, that's what we're going to do. And then when Sami Zayn won and beat Gunther, they're like, okay, well, Chad Gable's plan doesn't work. They had to explain that to us. Cole had to explain it to us in commentary. I would have preferred it actually happened in the storyline. We shouldn't have the announcers explaining so much to us. And it's also like an interpretation, instead of actually letting us find out for ourselves. I'm nitpicking probably, but I still don't like all this that's going on. It doesn't work well for me. Of the matches we did have, I thought Cody Rhodes and Logan Paul did a fine job tonight. Logan Paul, they got a good storyline in where it's like all these different things. He's honestly, they really ramped him up to be extra super heel and extra scumbaggish, as the influencer. And they decided, all right, we're going to go ahead and use. They brought back, the titanium plate in his hand, along with the brass knuckles, the one lucky punch. They brought all that back, which is what they brought back only when it's during Crown Jewel. You notice that? It was like during the Roman Reigns match, it was the same thing. So we're back to this again. And, it's fine. Listen, Logan Paul had a very good match, 24 minutes they gave it. Set it up, fine, no problem. To see Cody Rhodes was going to win anyway. And everything was set up, like the fact that they also made sure that U.S. title was not on the line so that Logan Paul will still have that as a consolation and can still hold on to that going up to SummerSlam. That'll be good for all that. And like I said, the other match I almost mentioned is that Randy Orton and Gunther, you got to feel the fact that that was a match I never thought we were going to get. But Randy Orton out here, they had to make it a long match. Gunther was pummeling away at Randy Orton. They played the match really well. I think they worked pretty well together. Very physical. It's good to see that for a Randy Orton match like that. Because, how often does he get to do like the physical stuff like that? That real catch can kind of stuff. The European world of sport kind of stuff. So I liked all that. Like the Gunther Randy Orton match I enjoyed. Cody Rhodes, Logan Paul. That's a decent main event. Like it's not the... That's a B pay-per-view event for that. Saudi Arabia was all into it. They were happy. And we got a title change. We got the King and the Queen of the Ring announced with the titles. Now, I want to make this point again just before I wrap it up. Because like I said, if you think of the names they had in here that could have potentially gone down the line, if you would have known, and really ask yourself the question, if we would have started off the tournament with the knowing that the winner was not only going to get the crown of King or Queen of the Ring, they were going to get a championship title shot. And it wasn't just any championship title shot. At SummerSlam. That's all significant. And they waited to the very last minute to give us that. So you're telling me, Sheamus, I can believe that. Kofi Kingston? No. Rey Mysterio? I can believe that. Ricochet or Ilya Dragunov? No. Jey Uso? Yes. Finn Balor? Yes. AJ Styles? Randy Orton? Sure. Baron Corbin and Carmelo Hayes? No. LA Knight? Potentially. And then you had Santos Escobar, Angelo Dawkins, and Tama Tonga. Again, there was only a handful of names that you could really have right there that would probably be good for that title shot. On the Queen's side, again, Maxine Dupree, Io Sky and Natalya. Io Sky, of course, yeah. Dakota Kai, I guess I can understand that. Zoe Stark. Naomi, yes. Jade Cargill, not yet. They already gave her a belt right now with Bianca Belair. And by the way, they won their match. Piper Niven? No. Michin? No. Tiffany Stratton? Yeah, possibly. I mean, she's already had title shots already, or title opportunities so far. Bianca Belair, absolutely. Always issue in. Candice LeRae, no. No. Because you would have just had to throw out about a good 5 or 6 names out of the tournament right there. So why would we have needed to go ahead and go the route of having so many quarterfinal or first round matches? Right? And that's the other part you have to think about too. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, we had 10. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. We had, 10 first round matches on each side and breaking down. So again, it was 20 competitors. Again, that's a lot right there. 20 competitors on each side. That's the purpose of understanding why, you just don't do this King and Queen of the Ring as much as they did over a month after Backlash to then just make it where the winner just gets a crown. That's the part I completely is logically understood why they made it a title opportunity on each side of the tournament. But to wait to the end was a mistake. All right, that's it. We're going to keep it simple like that. Thank you for listening into the program and catching this episode while I've been on the road. And even now, while I'm recording, I was recording on the road, driving for the first part. And then if you heard me after the Liv Morgan, Becky Lynch comments, I am poolside now in my home, not too far from the studio. But I wanted to get this done now so I can go ahead and, get this set up, put it out there for everybody later on tonight. Anyway, that's the show for tonight. Tomorrow, we go for AEW Double or Nothing. We'll have a podcast for that. KingofPodcasts.com. By the way, I want to make this point here as well. A couple of things that actually happened, too. So the announcement of SummerSlam in 2026, 2 nights in Minnesota. I got to say this. So most likely, Minnesota was already going to be given the WrestleMania 41. Vegas came with a late bid. Nick Khan, his team, TKO Group Holdings, because they're going to set something up with UFC and start doing the cards. WWE could not keep the commitment of the WrestleMania like they did the plan they were going to do. All right? Because then already, let's put it like this. They had already made changes for WrestleMania on when they're going to go ahead and schedule it next year. What is it, like 3rd week of April? So it's going to work out where they're going to probably have a UFC show out there and something else. That's where they're going to do billing for multiple events of combat sports on prepared weekend so that UFC and WWE will work on the same weekend. Like Dana White has already said in commentary, has already said in conversations, the same thing with Mark Shapiro. UFC Saturday nights, WWE back to Sunday nights. But the thing is, it would have the 2-night show, and then somewhere UFC would be brought into that. So what they decided to do was, Minnesota already had US Bank Stadium slotted, and they were going to give out site fees for bringing the show there. And since they're not going to be able to do WrestleMania because of the way it's set, and they're going to wait down the line, the next course of action, the compromise, was SummerSlam in 2026. Since there's nothing scheduled already at that point, like again, we don't even have 2025 scheduled. And they kept making a mention of that during commentary, but we'll wait to that because SummerSlam, we'll find out by the time we get to SummerSlam. They'll have that lined up. But either which way, Minnesota will get it. They want to do it 2 nights. That's up to them. That's their choice. But make no mistake about it, this was a make good, not just because of what other people might tell you out there, is that, you know what, they were promised WrestleMania. This is what they had to do as a consolation. But again, they can make it a big weekend. Now, will it mean that SummerSlam stays like that for 2 nights next year as well? Or do they keep doing 2 nights after 2026? Maybe it's just a one-off. SummerSlam doing 2 nights is too much. They don't have the roster. They don't have the wherewithal. Like, again, WrestleMania and making it where you're going to make a 2-night event off of that doesn't make sense. If you have to go and do it because of the fake that you had to do that for Minnesota, to go ahead and keep the deal because you don't want to lose the money that the city of Minnesota was going to give you, right? That was the point, is that the city of Minnesota, the city of Minneapolis, and Minnesota itself, they wanted to bring the event. They wanted to bring WWE here, a big event like this, and it was going to be WrestleMania originally because it was the original thought. So, you know what? This is the compromise. Of course, TKO Group Holdings, WWE, they're going to keep the money. So let's keep the money. You already gave it to us, pretty much. So let's do that. And I agree with that. Makes all sense in the world to me. And other than that, that's all I'm going to talk about tonight. There's obviously more. We'll table it until next week. I mean, we can talk about, the fact that, what was it? AEW's 5th anniversary was officially already happened. Because Double or Nothing would have happened today as opposed to tomorrow. We could make mention of Owen Hart. And his tragic passing was 25 years ago, a couple days ago. And interesting that Corey Graves mentioned Owen Hart and seeing him at a King of the Ring event in Baltimore Arena back in the day. But I don't remember they said anything else to that effect. And of course, I don't know if they should anything, or if they can. Very touchy situation. Nothing in particular of a tribute, because again, it's an anniversary. And they don't say much about Owen Hart on commentary anyway. Even though AEW tries to do a tournament every year in memoriam, right? Okay, we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening in, finding the shows you always do. kingofpodcasts.com for all the information that's there. So come back about 24 hours or so tomorrow after Double or Nothing. Enjoy it. Come back for another Wrestling Observer podcast, because wrestling needs us.